Hi, everyone. Let's officially kick this off. If we haven't met before, my name is Lois. My pronouns are she, her. I am your co-festival director. So myself and Ellen Denherder are the festival directors with several amazing team members that really help keep this festival on track. We are a tiny team compared to most arts orgs, but we have a lot of passion and keep things going all year long. So today, for those that hopped on early already know, but this is a very casual session where we're really just going to go through how to use the website from the start, from navigation, like where to find articles or things that are going to be super helpful along your journey. And then also how to actually use the producer tools like your project page and your user profile and all of those pieces. So I'm going to share my screen for most of this, kind of do tutorials, and then at the end, I'll be here for any questions that come up or you came in with, and we'll make sure to get those answered. Okay, so let's do it. Let me just pull up the right page on my thing here. This is where it's helpful to have a tech person on with me. Okay, here we go. Okay, so now everyone should be able to see my screen. Thumbs up, do we see it?
Yes.
Awesome. All right. So hopefully this is familiar. This is the Hollywood Fringe website. If you have not seen this page before, now's a good time because you're going to use it quite often. So we'll start with some of the helpful navigation pieces. So the biggies are going to be all right on top of your web browser here. Specifically, my shows. So what I did to prep for this is I created a test show. That way we can play around with a project page, a user profile, all of that. And what you'll see is exactly what you should see when you log into your account. So that's the idea here. So we'll start with my shows. That's where you're going to find your show. So in the midst of doing anything else on the website, you can always go back to my show and find the projects that you're currently working with. Like today, we're going to be working with my test show. That's mostly so I don't forget to delete it before we print the guide, because wouldn't that be funny? And then over here, we have all of our like artist resources. So news, that's going to be our blog. That's going to be, especially now, we're going to start popping in a lot of information, like things that are going in our newsletters or things that are talked about in town halls. So for example, like the first one you see here is a kind of a Cliff Notes version of our last one of our last workshops, Anti-Racism for White Artists. So this way, if you did miss a workshop or panel, you're kind of able to get a really easily digestible piece of that workshop. You'll also see like a little fun things like meet our staff. We just hired a wonderful new artist services coordinator who you will all be working with really closely. So you can find out about Roddy in our blog. There's also our events page. This is going to be one you spend a lot of time on. You can also find this at hollywoodfringe.org/events. So this is where all of our workshops, our town halls, our upcoming networking sessions, all of the details for those events live right here. And you'll see if we scroll down to networking events, we will be updating it as we schedule out those office hour sessions. So now we do have all of March and April officially, they have locations. So now you can find out where to go for office hours on this blog. And then no matter where you end up on the site, you can always click the logo in the left corner to end up right back at home. Something we'll also do to make it easier to navigate, if you were on your computer, I will name that it is just easier to navigate the Fringe website from your computer. You can do everything via mobile, but it's just not quite as user-friendly. So like right now, the right-hand corner, if you click that, that's going to go right to events because we know that that's an important page for participants right now. So that'll live right there. And same with registration. If you haven't registered, all of the information is going to be right here. So speaking of, we have lots of articles. How many people have already heard us talk about the support portal? Or the support portal? Has anyone heard us talk about that? Perfect. Let's get into it. This is even our staff will sometimes refer back to these articles because it really is, this is our 14th festival. In 14 years, we've basically put all of the information that people have asked questions about or the processes as a part of the festival into articles in the portal. So like, for example, artist resources, those are going to be the ones that are super handy. And that's right in the top of the website. You'll find artist resources. And these are going to be, admit someone, really quick links to a lot of things that we know are going to be super helpful. So that's the portal. Like I said, these are articles about ticketing, about press, about marketing, about the printed guide, like it's just a handbook of sorts of all of the things you could possibly need to know about Fringe. There's also a link to our participant packet, which you can also find at hollywoodfringe.org/participants. I cannot recommend that page enough. In fact, we're going to stop what we're doing and click on that right now, because it is going to be the most important material that you can possibly absorb in these early stages of the festival planning. I highly recommend grabbing the PDF version, or there's a docx that's going to be easier to read without all the formatting and pretty pictures. If you're looking just to get down to the nitty gritty, that can sometimes be easier to digest. But those PDF and docx versions, those are going to have the links. The one that's posted up here is going to be harder to click on the links. But basically, this is, I believe, 60 pages. I can't remember. I put it together and I can't remember. Yeah, it was 61 pages of Fringe information. And we sort of separated it out for you. That way it's like phase one, here are the things you should be thinking about early. It's, if you're brand new to Fringe, and have questions like what is our community ethos or our code of conduct? Is there any guidelines for COVID safety? And spoiler alert, we don't have any guidelines, but we certainly do have things in place if you would like to create guidelines for your individual show. And these are just going to be the important dates about Fringe, things like that. And then we have getting started, and that's going to have a lot of the helpful links that we'll talk about today. Those are all going to be right in your participant packet. There's also going to be venue resources. Right now, you've either just booked a venue or you were in the process of looking at venues, touring venues, and things like that. If you haven't, that is definitely something that's the next stage of the game, starting to think about what venue is going to house your show. And then, of course, all of the workshops and town halls are listed in here as well. And then moving into all of the less fun bits, but are certainly important to producing. We talk in the packet about what it looks like for unions or licensing. That comes up in shows all the time. If you're working with union actors, you're going to need to know what the rules are and what contracts to pull. There's information about that, as well as music licensing. If you do have music that is copywritten, you're going to want to check that out so as to not get in any trouble. Because we as artists have the fun challenge of living in Hollywood, where they're paying attention to those things. You can produce in smaller towns and probably get away with it a little easier, but in Hollywood, you're going to want to make sure you have all of your ducks in a row if you are using like music that's licensed. We also have a whole section about accessibility and inclusion, making sure that there's all things from that are free and really easy to dive into as a show to make sure you just have that many more audiences who are able to view and participate in your work. And just good practices in general for new producers and veteran producers, because the beautiful thing about our world is it's constantly changing and we're growing. So those are updated every year to make sure we have all of the current information. And then, of course, we start talking about marketing, ticketing, press, all of the things that I know, we're not quite there yet, but it's getting close, right? So there's a lot of information in here about best practices when it comes to postcards and things like that, as well as discounts. There's a lot of discounts in this packet as well. So I know off the top of my head, we have videographers and photographers. So if you're looking to capture your show, there's going to be discounts offered from several members of our community willing to do that at a discounted rate for Fringe shows. There's also discounts on printing and marketing packages through NoHo Arts District or through Combined Art Forms. There's a lot of different ways to help market your show at a discounted rate if you are looking for a little extra help in that department. And then we talk about during the festival, like that feels like ages away, but starting to prepare you for what it's going to really be like to actively do the Hollywood Fringe Festival, not just plan it and work on your show, but how to really participate in the festival process. And that's when we start talking about like buttons and hotspots. Like, for example, a lot of people don't know until later that we do we have fringe buttons that the primary producer, if this is your show, you get a free button, or you get a $3 button if you're a part of a show. And then like the general community gets them for $5. But that'll get you discounts on fringe tickets. That will get you discounts at local bars and restaurants and shops. It's kind of our way of really involving the entire Hollywood community in theater arts and celebrating it as a whole and not just in our own little corner. We'll also have information about Fringe Central and our industry program and awards. And that this packet is living too. So it's a living document that we're constantly making updates to make sure it's always relevant and factual. So like right now, it talks about what Fringe Central is, but not a location, because we will be announcing that in the coming weeks. But once we do, we will have that information in here as well. So I highly recommend hollywoodfringe.org/participants. Bookmark it, save it, come back to it, let that be your reference. And then when you can't find the information you're looking for here, remember there's always support at hollywoodfringe.org. Roddy, who I mentioned before, our newest artist service coordinator, is going to be on that inbox, making sure he is really like active and participating with all of the artists' needs throughout the festival. Okay, so those are the big, let's talk venues. How many people, those of you that are on camera, how many people have their venue? I love it. Perfect. And I feel like I should be seeing, like, just based on years past, we should be seeing about half. So I love it. We're perfectly, statistically, we're doing great in this group. Now is the time you definitely want to start actively looking if you haven't yet, because the ideal timeline is to have your venue booked by April 15th, which is that printed guide deadline, because you're going to want to be able to have where your show is happening and when your show is happening in that printed guide. You can certainly participate without making that deadline, but why? That'll be extra marketing for your show, and we want to make sure that you get all you can. So if you haven't, go over to the venues tab at the top of the website. And once you have a project page, you will be able to apply directly. For example, like we'll do it with my project here. So I'm going to look at 905 Cole. And there's pictures, there's information, all of the things you could possibly want to know about a venue. And then you can apply to this venue. So you'll see when I hit apply, because I have a project, I'm going to apply with this project. And then we'll go kind of back to this, but all of the information you fill out when you're first creating your project, that gets sent to the venue outside of demographics. Like we ask you information like about demographics and like income, and those are just for our grant. So the only, like literally I am the only person who actually sees that information, and it's in a percentage form. So know that that is not going out to everyone. That is just for Hollywood Fringe so that we can apply for grants and give more funding towards scholarships and things like that. But the venue will get what's important for them to know, which is like how big your show is. If you have a cast of 15 and the venue has only a tiny little stage, they're going to probably give you a heads up that maybe this isn't the venue for you, and maybe give you some recommendations on where to go. So that information is there to help make sure they're pairing with shows that are going to really do best in their spaces. And that kind of gives them, it's almost, I mean, it's just like a job application, right? Here's a little bit about my show. That way, when we meet, everyone has a little bit of information. And then additionally, let's go back to venues here. When you look at a venue, and you can apply to as many as you want. Remember that too. There's no, I mean, I wouldn't apply to every single one, like look at them. And if you're like, I'm interested, that could be a cool space, then apply. But there's no limit on how many venues you can apply to. But additionally, especially because we are nearing the actual festival timeline, we're going to want to also like send an email, do some sort of additional reach out because they have hundreds of applications. And while they do their very, very best to respond to the actual application in the website, it never hurts to throw an email and say, hi, my name is Lois. My show is this. I'm super interested in your space. Here's my contact information. I'd love to set up a call or a tour. So just letting them know that you're genuinely interested, and you can do that directly through the site as well. It'll go directly to their email right here. Okay, so that's venues. Let's talk a little more navigation, and then we'll get down into the nitty gritty of like project pages and stuff. But So ads, we're starting to talk about ads in our participant emails right now. So if you have registered for the festival, that means you are now on our fun little participant newsletter email list. So I highly recommend, if you haven't already registered, even if you're like, you haven't gotten a venue yet, it is still super helpful to register as soon as you are able. That way you are on our radar and we can start sending you information more often than just like a general newsletter, which is what you get if you haven't registered, but you've wanted to receive information from the festival. The participant emails are going to be a great way to make sure you're getting the timelines, the helpful hints, reminders about events, things like that. And I forgot what I was doing already. Oh, ads. And so that's where we started talking about in the participant packet recently, which is if you do want to purchase either online or printed ads, that is starting to become, those are starting to get reserved. So you're going to want to go to this little tab here, buttons and ads. And this is where you'll see all of the ads that are currently available for purchase. Fringe participants get 50% off because these ads are also like marketing for businesses and members of the community. They're paying full price. But if you're a registered participant, another reason to register early, and definitely don't buy an ad until you've registered, because then you're just wasting your money and we don't want you to do that. But you will get 50%, and that discount automatically shows up as long as you're logged in under the user account that you've registered show with. And so these are your options for printed guide ads. So that's going to go in the printed guide that we print out thousands of copies, and the Hollywood Fringe staff delivers them to neighboring businesses, tourist spots, hotels. Like, we really get those guides into the hands of people who don't know about the festival. So that's kind of your outreach beyond like the office hours or the fringe community. That's where we're hitting people who don't maybe otherwise know about the theater scene in Hollywood, and are making sure we get those butts in your seats. But we have this year, for the first time, actually, we have a 8-page guide ad options. We wanted to make sure we're providing some cheaper options for ad buys, so you don't have to afford, a full page or a quarter. We do have some cheaper. And the guide, which, I have one next to me, is a pretty big guide. So it's not like the 8th is not like a teeny tiny, it's not going in a small guide. So it is a pretty big guide, and adds. In fact, why don't I do this? I'm going to stop sharing screen so that you can see my whole. Oh, no, things went away. There it is. So you can see my whole, but these would be like the quarter-page ad sizes. And our guide is fully recyclable, so we are not harming our wonderful planet Earth any more than we have to with a printed guide. And this is, show you, like, these are going to be your ad. Like, if you don't, you don't have to purchase an ad. That's going to be something you want to do if you do want a visual, like your show poster or a picture in there. Otherwise, you get, this is so hard to see with my ring light, but that is going to be like a show ad example. Okay, back to screen share. I don't know, I'm a visual person, so I figured other people probably are too. Okay, back to ads. Yeah, so these are your printed guide ads, and those you're going to want to purchase and have uploaded by April 20th. So know that that's what that means when we're talking about an ad deadline. You're going to want to have it purchased and art uploaded, and you can do all of that right through the site. And when you buy it, you'll see like where to upload your ad. And then our wonderful graphic designer, Chris Anatone, will work with artists like personally to make sure that they're the right sizes. And, because we want you to look good. So we're going to work with you to make sure that we have the right size. We're not going to just slop whatever is in there. And, in case there was a mistake, we want to try to avert that. So the earlier, the better on that. And then you have online ads. Those are on the Hollywood Fringe website. So those can be purchased and uploaded at any time. There's no timeline on that because there's no print deadline. So that can happen whenever. And so it's impressions, which means it is per like eyeballs on it. Every time it shows up on the website and it's all randomized, that is one click. So that is your one impression. And that's what that means when it says like 9,000 impressions. And the site gets about this year, it should be more actually based on just our numbers, but over 1 million hits during June alone. So there's a lot of eyes coming to the website, and that's where those ads come in handy, because it's like marketing rule, like 101, like you have to see something at least 3 times for it to stick, right? So like the idea with impressions is I've seen, and it works, like it gets me every time. By the time I see an ad a third time, I'm like, I gotta get tickets to that. That looks amazing, and click. So definitely start to think about branding and what that image you think will grab people if you are doing these digital ads. Okay, and additionally, so a fun little thing we've started to do to make life just a little bit easier. We have done, here, I'm gonna stop sharing for a second and pull this up. We have put together an ad explainer and some templates to make your ad journey just a little easier. And this, again, all in the participant packet. So remember, if like, because I'm going to like do a bunch of links and share a bunch of things, and then you're going to hop off this event and go, I don't know what any of those links were. Don't worry, they're all in the participant packet. But if you go to hollywoodfringe.org/ads, also tip, you can also pretty much Google anything like Hollywood Fringe ad specs. And our Google, like our digital presence is heavy enough where most everything will pop up that you're looking for if you just want to search Google as well. But here are 2024 ad specs. So hollywoodfringe.org/ads. And that's going to talk about all of the nitty gritty of what the actual size is, what the bleed is. And if you're like me, that means that's garbage. I know what none of that means other than the graphic designer and the printer told me these are what I need for the ads. But the good news is we have templates to make that easier for people. So if you're not a graphic design genius, you can still create a really solid ad for your show. So here we have templates for Photoshop and Illustrator and Canva. This is the gold if you're asking me. I, again, not a digital designer, graphic designer, but Canva, so easy. I love it, and it's turned me into a graphic designer that I never thought I would be. So if that's where you're like, I'm a creative, I have a good eye for things, but Photoshop is beyond me, Canva is going to be your best friend. So we have templates for all 4 of those printed ad sizes here that will be very, very helpful in your guide journey. And then down here as well, Chris, our graphic designer, put together kind of an explanation sheet. So this is going to be a lot of helpful hints about, making sure your ad pops on the page and gets fully there. It's not cut off, things like that. And as well as examples. So this is going to be super easy and super helpful to start thinking about now. If you know you want a printed guide ad, I recommend starting this journey now. That way you're not rushing, you don't want to throw something together the last week because you forgot to give that some time. So now would be the time, I think, to just start to think about what that's going to look like. That way you're not rushing at the end. Okay, so that's about, why don't I stop here to take some questions specifically about site navigation. I feel like that's a good chapter. So are there any questions? Are there things that you're like, I know this exists, but where in the hell do I find it? Any questions about site navigation? And feel free to just unmute and ask away. This is casual.
Hi there, this is Ruth. I did have a question. So it's my first Fringe. And so thank you. So what I wanted to do, I have somebody I'm working with, and he's like my tech guy. He's also doing the video for me during the show. So if I want to get him on the page, do I need to do something special to have him as part of my page?
Oh, like on your project page on the website?
Yes.
Yes. And that goes in. So we'll definitely cover that in the next chapter, because yes, that is exactly the kind of question that we're going to cover today. So that's a very good question. But I'm going to hang tight if it's cool. On the next chapter, I'll show you. That way you can kind of see how it goes.
Absolutely. And then follow-up question, as far as advertising, you mentioned something about being at half off if you're part of the festival.
Mm-hmm.
So if we do like a half page, we can get it for the price of a quarter page.
It's exactly half of what it is. It's been a minute, I'm going to be honest, since I've looked at the prices. I think that is basically how the price breakdown goes, but it's like 50% off of what it is to the outside public.
And that
And that price will show up when so if I'm a registered participant and I'm looking at the marketplace, I'm looking at those ads, that's the price I'm going to see is the 50% off. So the computer knows.
Okay, good. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, when people look at your show, are they going to see images you've posted in the show, or is that available to them when they're on the site?
Yeah. So all of the show, and we'll get into that as well, but any media, yeah, like just like your Facebook or your Instagram, anything that you've uploaded to your project page is completely visible to the public as they're searching shows and deciding what to see.
Right, so they can just find my show and see all my stuff.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was in Solo Fest and we videotaped the show, and then I have my videographer editor making little clips.
Yeah.
And so we're gonna post those clips on YouTube and then link them to my show.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'll show you how to do that in this next chapter too.
So
Absolutely.
if I just have that, is there any reason to have an ad?
Yeah, so if you think about it this way, it's there's hundreds of shows, right? Like we don't even have the number because registration is still open, but there I can promise there's going to be hundreds of shows. The idea with the ads or any marketing in general is to make sure your show is the one that catches their eye. So if I'm looking at, actually, this is I can screen share as an example. And remember, most shows are not up yet because registration is still open and not everyone is registered or added performances. In fact, most. So also know if you have a venue and they haven't added performances, don't worry. I
Yeah, well,
only
my venue already gave me performance dates and I paid for the first one of them,
oh
but I
perfect.
don't think it shows up on your site yet.
Yeah, most of venues are just now starting to rank because remember they have hundreds of shows in their spaces. They're just now starting to enter in performance time. So give that time, but they always get it done by the deadline. But for example, so if I'm like an audience member, I'm just, I heard a friend has a show in the Hollywood Fringe Festival and I'm curious and I'm going to go see if there are other shows I want to see. I'm going to click over to show. And again, not very many shows on there, but this is what a general audience sees. Somebody who doesn't know you, that hasn't been sent a link to your project page, they're seeing just shows. They're seeing all of these shows without any context on like they're just choosing based on kind of luck, right? And what comes up and what performances are coming up next. So the idea of an ad is to give a stranger a reason to come to your
Right.
project page instead of the other, 400. Yeah, so it's kind of like both work. But if you're not worried about selling tickets, you know that you're going to sell to personal friends and family, then it would be less important to you, right? Absolutely.
Right. Yeah, well, I sold out Solo Fest just through my community. And so that was like 86 tickets. And I booked the black box at the Broadwater for 3 shows. So that's 150 tickets basically in
Yeah,
3 shows. So I'm thinking just through my community and friends of friends who went to my show or people who want to see it again, I'm gonna be able to sell it out again.
yeah, and that's right. And there's a different journey, and that's where we're always really like I try to talk very broad. We're like these are the options available to you. Everyone is going to have a different journey
Right.
with that.
Yeah, because there's also my shows about my life as a sex researcher. So there's a lot of community we have related to sex positives
Yeah,
and things related to gender and whatever. And so it feels to me it's going to be more effective to market directly to them through people's email lists and stuff.
absolutely. Yeah, and that would make total sense. I will note, and not to stray you from your path, because I totally hear you, and that makes sense to me. But like there's also when it comes to awards, and this is something we'll talk a lot more about, but I think marketing and awards always kind of go hand in hand because it's just like the for your consideration, right? Before every, award season, there's for your considerations. You want the people who are voting to remember your show when it comes to voting. So there's also that side of marketing is kind of getting your show name out there. That way it's on the minds when people go to vote for, best solo show or best ensemble
So
or
is every audience member able to vote?
Not every, you have to see, and we'll release these guidelines in about a month, month and a half. But they have to see at least 3 shows. We try to make it fair. So Hollywood Fringe, we don't choose anything. We love all of you equally and have no say in who wins what, other than we orchestrate like data and like helping, with the tech side. But an audience member must see at least 3 shows in order to vote. And if you're a registered artist, then like if you're a part of a team or if you're a primary producer, if you were involved in the Hollywood Fringe as a participant, you also get a vote, as well as venues and industry members and press members. And so that's kind of the collective that gets to vote. So that's if you are like completely going
Are
out.
you allowed to vote for yourself?
Absolutely. Whatever feels right. I'm not, there's too many of y'all. I'm not going to try to audit those. I just make sure that it's one ballot per person, and they've seen at least 3 shows or fit into one of those other categories. But something to consider if you are someone that is kind of going after a very like a niche community or kind of going after your personal community, they might not see enough fringe shows to vote.
Right.
Not a bad thing, right? Because awards are shit. They don't matter. But like if they matter to you, that is just something to noodle on. Right. Perfect. Any other questions about navigating resources? And then I'll move on to project pages and user profiles. Yes.
So if you say pay for a certain amount of digital ads, do they stay running throughout the course of the Fringe?
They do, unless you stop them, which you absolutely can. And we'll talk a lot about, so the marketing and ticketing workshop is coming up. Check /events for the exact date, because that is not in my brain. But we're going to talk a lot about kind of like the participants who have had success in the past will be on that panel, and they'll give you kind of some pointers on when to kind of activate those and when to hold back. Because there's a rhyme and a reason for everything. Some people prefer to when nobody else has ads, right? And other people prefer to run them starting May 1st, which I will note, if you run your ads on May 1st, they will drop. They will go through so fast because there are just so many people on the site that they will drop fast. So, but you have once you have those impressions purchased, you can pause and restart as often as you would like. So you have full control over your ad to try new things, try it for a day, see what worked. How many tickets did I sell? I ran that ad for 4 hours between 2 and 6, like with it, right? That's what we do. We're producers. We're constantly reinventing the game.
Great. Thank you so much.
Worse. All right, I'm going to jump into project pages. Let me just get my page ready. Okay, back to screen share. Okay, so we're back to our homepage. You will see this little freak, which is an ode to our mascot. We haven't really pulled the mascot out of the box in a while, but the fringe freak, because the fringe breaks out the artistic freak in all of us. That was a mascot. So that is the little blue guy if you have not uploaded a profile picture. So I'm going to click that icon, and that brings me to my user profile. So this is not my show page, right? This is my personal page. This is if I had an Instagram, this would be my Instagram account. So this is where you can access your projects, right? If you click into that, you'll see the show you're currently working on, shows that you've done in the past. That is kind of your CSV, your digital fringe CSV. You also have my favorites. So as you are going through and being an audience member as well, right? Because the idea, like ideally you're kind of fringing on both ends. You are actively an artist and a producer, but you're also seeing work and supporting your fellow artists. And you can favorite shows along the way that, like, I know I want to see that. I'm not going to buy tickets yet, but that's on my radar. So you can start to kind of build that list for yourself, and those will all live here. And then you have a purchase history. This acts as kind of your wallet. If you were like, did I buy an ad? I can't remember, or I can't remember what I've done or what tickets I purchased. Your purchase history is all going to be right here. And then your schedule. As you buy tickets, you're going to be able to keep track of your schedule and what you have coming up, so that you don't overbook yourself, or don't get rid of that self-care time that you absolutely need throughout the festival. And then you'll have notifications. This we'll talk about in session 2. I don't want to overwhelm today, But we have like inter-site messaging on the website. So as a registered participant with the show, that means you can message your fellow producers and your audience members, things like that. So your notifications will live here. But the good news is they also get emailed to you. So you will not lose track of your notifications. And then here, this is where you can start to build out your page. Because let's be real too, like maybe a casting director came to see your show and was like, hot damn, that actor was phenomenal. I want to learn more. This is a great place to be able to make that super easy for casting director, no name, to be able to find out about your professional work. So you can add your Facebooks and your Instagrams and your TikToks and all of your social profiles right in here. You can also add media to your user account. So if you want to add your headshots or your reel or anything that is of your personal, like artistic repertoire, that should happen in your user profile.
How
And
come there's no website there?
I didn't add one. This is my test account. Sorry, everyone. I had to, like, on my user account, it would show you all of the admin tricks. So I had to create like a test one.
Oh,
But you can absolutely add all of that in here. Because if you go to like edit, this is where you can add in a lot more. You're like, where's your website? Or like, how do you get in contact?
okay.
Yeah. Oh, what is there it is. Your pronouns, your preferred title, like maybe, you're a producer, maybe you're an artist, maybe you're a scenic designer, kind of let people know, or, you can have 7 different things here. Cause let's be honest, we all do 7, 8 different things, right? But add in all of that. That way people know what your skills are and what you normally do in the artistic field. But this will, be all about you. And then with the media, I'll note, because it's a question I get a lot in support, is when you are adding your team, and we'll show you how to do that on the project page, the picture that comes up is the picture the team member has here. So when, if you want to change your director's photo or your, actor's photo, they have to change their photo in their user account. The project will just link user accounts directly. And then what is here goes into your team. Does that make sense? Perfect. And then you can add, like I said, pictures and videos. And then once you add pictures and videos, you will have an option to star. I don't have that because I did not enter in any. Apologies, I should have. But a star pops up. That way you can choose what your your main profile picture is, and that can change. And then also a trash can will appear once you have multiple images. So if you decide, you know what, that was 14 years ago me, it's time to move on from that headshot, you can delete that from here as well. Okay, let's go into shows. So that's your user profile. And now like that next step of your public presence is going to be your show. So today we're going to play in my test show. Boom. Okay. So this is what the public sees, right? Outside of a couple of things. So note there are some things when you are logged in to your primary account, you will see things that others don't. Like you can add your pictures, your videos, but if you're not logged in as the primary, that will not be visible. So that is like a weird website thing to remember. Like nobody can add in videos or pictures to your account. It just shows up knowing that you're logged in and that this is your account. So here, that's where you're going to add your pictures and your videos, all right here. And you can change, so from this front page, you can change your media. You can edit your production team. So this is what we were talking about with your team, right? So if you want to add people, like if you want to add your graphic designer or your director or anyone who's related to your project that you really want to make sure it gets that credit, you hit edit. And then you can add a team member here. I highly, highly, highly recommend if they've already done, like check with your team if they've already done Fringe before or if they already have a profile, because you're going to want to make sure you invite them via the same email that they have on their Fringe website. Otherwise, they end up with 4 or 5 different user accounts. And it happens every year and we can fix it, but it takes a lot of time. So if we can avoid it, if you're like, I think they've done Fringe before, hey, what's your Fringe user account, and then you can avoid that step and make it a little easier. And then you just send an invite, and from there, they are triggered to log in and create that user account that we just went through. So the site, once you hit send invite, the website does an automatic, hi, you've been added to a project. Assuming that that is the case, please click here to update your user profile and create your page. If that is wrong, let us know, So if you make a mistake, no worries, we can fix it.
Okay, the theater I'm working with, wants they're not handling ticketing. And so but if I'm doing a solo show, I
Mhm.
shouldn't be doing the ticketing right before my show, should I? Shouldn't I have somebody else do it or what?
Are you talking about like in-person box office?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that happens all the time. Most theaters don't actually handle the box office. And
right,
what I highly recommend, and it happens every year in this beautiful serendipitous way, come to office hours, like come to events and do a box exchange. Hey pal, like your show is, maybe yours is right after mine or right before,
right.
or
Uh-huh.
and do switches. So I'll run it for you. That way you can focus on your show, and then you run it for me and I can focus on
So
mine.
when do I find these people to do the swap with?
So office hours starts at the end of this month, starting March 27th is a Wednesday.
Okay,
And every Wednesday until the festival starts, we're going to have weekly events. You can find them at hollywoodfringe.org/events. And we'll have 200 participants, especially like they'll start out smaller with 50 or 60. And then by the time we get to April, we have 200 people. So come to those
right,
events and talk to myself or our other fringe staffers, be like, hey, I'm interested in finding other solo shows that might want to buddy up. And we can help introduce you as well. We try to play like matchmaker in that way, like to make sure new participants are meeting other participants that maybe have similar shows. So maybe it's even
right,
a show that you have a similar, there's enough of a similar marketing scheme where you can market for each other and run box.
right. Okay, good.
Yeah. But let's add a team. So for example, we're gonna add me, because why not? And I'm the director. So that will send me an invite. And now I have a little bit of a team. And see, because I used an email that exists with my user account, it already was like, oh, hey, Lois, I know you. And it directly attached to my account. And then you have a team. And again, with awards, and words don't matter. They're bullshit. But if they matter to you, you want to have your actual team. Now, granted, you don't want to add team members for the sake of awards people, because we are smart and we will figure that out. If you have 45 people working in your show, we're going to go, really? That seems odd. But add your director, add your cast, make sure that they're getting the visible credit, but also are able to participate in the community awards and things like that. You can also edit these. So as the primary producer, you can go over to edit. And here's something fun. So if you have people on your team that you want to give some admin privileges to, you can add them as a project admin. Maybe that is your co-producer or your director, or your graphic designer if you want help with your ad upload. Anyone that you want to provide that extra bit of access to the Fringe page, you would make a project admin. You would still be the primary, so don't change the primary unless you're giving up all control, because the primary still gets paid. They're the ones that like you have the end say. If you want to quit the Fringe, the primary has to reach out to us, things like that. So make sure you don't give up your primary contact privileges there, but you can add people as admin if you want to make sure they can also like check your ticket sales and upload things on your behalf. So there's your project team. Okay, let's go back to my page here. So this way, my projects. Manage project. Okay, and then let's play in the admin tab. So again, we went through details, and this is that more front facing. And now, oh, look, now I have a director on there. We can go in and do admin. This is where we're going to do a lot of our editing. So and remember, you can edit, and I mean, you can edit until the last day of the festival if you want to. Highly recommend you don't. Kind of like settle on things before the printed guide deadline, especially for the printed guide portion. But this is where you're going to play and make some changes. Whoa. There it goes. So edit is going to be where you spend a lot of time in these early stages. You can change your show title. You can change your category. And that can happen all the way up until, again, guide deadline, because that category is where your show will exist in the printed guide. And when you really want to maintain consistency once things go into print. Your company, and this question has come up a lot, so I'm going to mention it. This is not your venue. This is, and it does not have to be, if you like, my name is Lois Neville, I don't have a company. This can just be Lois Neville. Or you can make up a company. This is a great time if you're starting to build your brand as a producer and as an artist. This might be when you start creating a product to be officially LLC'd in order to go here. But this can start to build your like professional brand. Your short description. This is what is included in the printed guide. So that is going to be much more concise, but that is going to print. Whereas your long description is what people will see digitally. So when they're looking at the website at shows, the long description is what pops up for them. This is also, I want to note, where if you have a content warning for your show, if your show has triggering content or perhaps, like has smoke, fog, this is where you're going to want to warn your audience about that. I highly recommend if it's a super, if the material, like if your show is very, very triggering, the entire show is perhaps about like sexual assault or violence, and that is a main part of your show, put that on the earlier part of your show description. If there's light mention, that can go later. Kind of put your, I always say, like put your content warning in the description based on how big of a part of your show it is. Unless it is health, safety, or mental health related, like if there are flashing lights, that's going to want to be really early because that could potentially harm someone who is prone to seizures, things like that. And feel free, if you're questioning any sort of like content or access, feel free to reach out to support@hollywoodfringe.org. We're always happy to like walk you through what's going to make your audience feel the safest, because then you're going to have a really happy audience, right? We want to keep the trust of our audience because that's how they come back to shows in the future. We'll talk more about accessibility on this too. But let's go to external websites. So this is where if you have a company website, if you have a personal website, like something that is associated to your artistic work, this can go in here. And that's just something the audience can click to find out more about you or your show or your company. Minimum age, that's going to be for the audience. Like if you know that you have adult content that might be 18 plus, if you are at 3 clubs, that is a bar space that is 21 plus only. So no matter if it's family friendly, it does not matter. That is a 21 plus minimum age, for example. So minimum age is for your audience. And of course, country of origin, that helps us with, awards and demographics and things like that. State. And then now we get into like the first round of flags. So we have flags at both the project level, and these are going to be the searchable ones, and the performance level, where like, for example, like maybe you have one show that is an ASL and not all of them. So doing flags in the performance level allows for some more leeway for artists. So here you're going to want to put if your show is free, because that's advertising. So put that up there, right? If you do have pay what you can options, you can put that here. If your show is family friendly, another tag that goes right here, 1-person show, world premiere. And then here we have the start of some accessibility flags. So that's letting people know if your show is multilingual. That'll let audience know,
I have some different languages in my show, but I have subtitles as part of my Q lab.
Oh, I love that. When there's subtitles, that is even a flag. So you get to announce, like that gets to be a marketing additional thing for you. But I would say, yeah, if it's a major part of your show, absolutely click that. Lets people know that it's accessible to more than just English, right? Which is important, especially in Los Angeles. And because again, Los Angeles, we do have a specific, if your performance is in Spanish, that way our Spanish language audience can find shows that they're going to be able to see more easily. And then we start to get into content warning. So if you do have a content warning, you're going to want to click that and then describe it in your long description. So this gives your audience a heads up to do a little bit of research, and then they know to look at your show page to find out what those content warnings are. And then of course includes nudity, because we don't want to ever surprise an audience with nudity. It is certainly allowed. We are a sex positive festival, but you got to let people know. And then these are of course if this is for the primary producer, if you do decide you want to mark your show as inactive, you certainly can do that. This is your page. You own everything on here. So you would click that if you want your show to disappear. You can decide also as the primary to not accept press reviews or user reviews. That is entirely up to you. And that's, some people will do that if they're maybe in the workshop stage. They have a newer show that they want to just put on its feet, see how it feels, and not take feedback. And that is absolutely okay. But it's an all or nothing when it comes to our reviews. So you either are accepting reviews or you're not. You can't pick and choose which ones you accept to be public on the website. But know that that is here if you decide that reviews and press are not something that you're interested in starting to gather. Okay, let's move to eventually when you have performances, and actually I'll go into my page in a second to go through performances, but the next web session are going to be really in detail about like discount codes, price levels, and all of the things in ticketing. So it's pretty much in 1 month. I believe April 15th is our second web session, which will be that perfect 2 weeks before tickets on sale. So come join us then to talk through all of the ticketing things. And then of course, we'll go over it in the town hall and the marketing and ticketing workshop before that. But know that that's going to be the big thing on the next web session. But guide proof, that will also be on the next one. But let's look at what that looks like. That way you can just kind of have it in your head. The guide proof is what is going to be in the printed guide. So this gives you just a really easy way to kind of look over your information before our printed deadline. And we will, I promise, send out so many checks of like, hey, heads up, you have 3 days, you have 2 days, make sure you're checking this link. So we won't let you forget. But I find it helpful to kind of look at that information all in one place early on. So if you do as well, this is where you'll find it and you'll see exactly what will be there. Once you have performances scheduled, dates will be highlighted here. Obviously, at this point, I do not have any performances on mine, so they're not highlighted. But once your venue adds your show times, that's what will happen here. And then if you want to edit anything from this here, it'll let you do it from this link right here. So to try to make it really easy. And then fun thing for the future, not relevant yet, but you will eventually have your patrons list. Once basically the Hollywood Fringe, when through the ticketing platform, when an audience member buys a ticket to your show, we ask their permission to share their information with you. That way you walk away from the Hollywood Fringe with a patrons list that you get to keep and use for future shows, for future e-blasts. And this doesn't go away. Our site hoards information. So you could come back to your page in 10 years and it will still all be right here, or you can pull a CSV and make it a lot easier on yourself. But just know that we are collecting that information. That way you walk away with a solid list of patrons for future use.
Could you expand on that, Lois, please? I'm not really understanding what you mean by this.
The patrons list?
Yes.
Yeah, here, you know what? Let me show you. Okay. I'm gonna stop share. I'm gonna go over to mine. That way I can show you an active event because like this is a test one. That way I don't show anyone's information. But let me just pull up an active event. Okay. So now we're looking at my Hollywood Fringe account. So let's go over to like marketing and ticketing, for example. So if I go over to my admin, I actually have tickets sold because it is our marketing and ticketing workshop that is actively being marketed. If I click over to patrons, I have a list of everyone who's coming to the workshop, right? You will see that same thing. And then at the end of the festival, and this will have everyone from every performance. I'm not going to do this and show all of their information, but when you are ready to do that, you can download a CSV and collect all of the emails. That way for future, when you remount your show in 3 months on your own run, you have 160 or 500 people that have seen your show at Hollywood Fringe that you can reach back out to and say, hey, I've so appreciated you coming to my last show. I have a new one, or I have an updated version of the show. I would love to have you come. And you are just kind of building your audience as an artist for the future.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Course. And then actually while we're here, we'll go into performances. So once your venue has added performances, and I say it again, be patient with them. They have so many things. And in the 13 years I've been doing this, they've never once dropped the ball before a deadline. They're just gathering. So eventually they will add. And at that time, you will see your shows start to pop up. And then you will have access to edit certain things in there just to kind of give you a teaser of what that will look like. You will not be able to edit like your location or the duration or the time. I want to make that clear. Your venue can. So if for some reason, say my show was 120 and before guide deadline, I was like, you know what, actually, I was able to cut this baby down and now it's a 90-minute show. I have more time for load in, load out. I will contact my venue, let the venue know that that is the change. And just for some backstory, the reason we do that is because a venue schedule can become so messy if I'm in there trying to overstep my boundaries of changing their schedule. So the venue will change your times if you do need that. But you can change like your online shut off. If you decide, like if you don't want to worry about selling a bunch of tickets at the door and would rather have a QR code to your Hollywood Fringe project page, you can make that 0 hours before performance, which means the Hollywood Fringe will continue to accept ticket purchases for your show until the bitter end, until the moment, the show time starts. Or you can do, let's be safer, and do 5 minutes or do 1 hour. That way you have time to print your will call if you want to, or things like that. But know that you control what that looks like. You also control your price. So even though I know you're asked about it in these early registrations, that's just to get an idea of what to put in as a temporary. You can always change your price at any time per performance. So know that too. You can decide your previews are, $5 and your regular shows are $15. So you just need to change your performance. If you want to change individual performances, you do that in performances, not in the project. But all of that is going to be right here. And then say what seats on sale, also only venues because they know how many seats are in their space and to not oversell. So that is what that looks like. And then from there, you will eventually be able to view, like day of, if you say like, hey, you know what, it's the LA Marathon and traffic is crazy and my show is going to start in 4 hours and I'm worried about people getting there. When it comes time for that, you can do a message patrons and send an email to all of the people who have purchased tickets to your show. That's how I emailed all of you today to let you know the Zoom link and, all of the details. So you have that like very direct contact with your audience throughout the process. And that will all be available here. And again, we'll do this in way more detail in the second web session, but just to give you an idea of all the tools that you will have at your fingertips. Okay, let's go through. Actually, while I'm here, we're also going to edit our performance flags. So there's a couple, like I said, of the performance flags that are in each performance. So this is going to be per performance and not in your project. And that's going to be your accessibility here. Ignore the things on the left. That is only for my site admin, so that won't be available to you. But for accessibility, so is this an ASL interpreted performance? Is this audio descriptions available or captioning available, right, Leanna? Or like flashing lights. So that's where you're going to want to make sure people know that that's happening. Are you offering tactile preview tours? All of these things. Or if you do decide that you want stricter COVID policies, we fully support that. And the website will let your audience know. So if you do want to do proof of COVID-19 vaccine or masks, things like that, that the website will absolutely support in helping your audience make sure they know about that guideline. And then helpful tip, always hit update performance. I've been doing this for 13 years, and the amount of times I have done all of this work only to forget to hit update performance. Don't do that to yourself. Give yourself that break and click update performance. Okay, so that is the project page. Any questions? And I'm sure there are, because that's so much information, right? And for the accessibility, I know we went through those flags pretty quickly. Know that at hollywoodfringe.org/accessibility, or in our project, in our participant packet, there is a whole packet of like accessibility descriptions. So if you're like, I'm not really sure what that means, or like, is this audio description, or is like, what is a sensory friendly? We have materials to walk you through all of the accessibility flags and how to make sure that you're matching those with your show correctly. Okay, any questions? If you have a question, feel free to just unmute and pop in. I'm going to quickly check the YouTube link to see if anything popped over there that I've missed entirely. No, I don't think so.
Lois, may I ask a quick question?
Of course, please do.
What is the average price per ticket?
Average price. So it is between 10 and 12. I will note probably closer to 12 because our data does include digital tickets, like if you are live streaming, which tends to skew lower. But please come to our marketing and ticketing panel. That is, I think, I mean, arguably, I love all of the workshops, but that is one of the most valuable. We have like past award winners and like sold out like showrunners that will talk about what they did and like why they chose the ticketing prices they did. But $12 is the year-round average.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. I will note too, and we'll talk more about this in the marketing and ticketing, and show you in the next web sessions. But like you have discount code options, right? Like you can discount code. So there's also nothing wrong with kind of going higher than you know you're going to, because then you can be, hey pal, let me give you a $5 discount code. And that just increases the likelihood that they show up, right? Because you've given that discount code. So there's also a lot of people will go higher for their standard price, knowing that they're going to discount a lot of their tickets. Okay, I'm going to look at the YouTube chat one more time. I don't see any last questions. And I mean, we've wrapped up pretty early. I went through all the things. If anyone has any general questions that aren't website, I'd be happy to stay on a little longer and answer some general, save you some time emailing support later.
Well, I'm just sort of looking at the numbers, and all I can see is that it's a money-losing proposition. And I'm just wondering how I can not lose too much money.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, and
Because
right.
I mean, it's like with my only experience was with the Solo Fest, and
Mhm.
they wanted us to charge $25 a ticket, and because of that, I made money.
Yeah,
But
and
it's like I'm just really worried that all I'm gonna do is just lose money.
no, I hear you. And it is producing in Los Angeles is so fucking expensive, right? There's no
Right.
like, and it's certainly like doing something like Hollywood Fringe or Solo Fest where there is an entity that you're working with is cheaper than like renting
Right,
out,
exactly. Yeah.
but yeah, like I won't even pretend to stand up here and be like, yeah, it's cheap. It's not. But I'm going to share a blog. So our fundraising and budgeting panel that was just the beginning of this month had a lot of, or maybe it was last month, but a lot of information about crowdfunding and really thinking through your budget and what to slash, what to keep, what is
Right.
important. This is,
Uh-huh.
and I'm going to share that in the chat here because
Uh-huh.
anyone are helpful. But no, like absolutely, like $25 is not unheard of. It happens. I will note less for solo shows, especially because again, you have so many shows that people will budget for like, oh, I can see 2 shows if I see a couple shows that are $10 or $15 versus I can maybe only see 1 show that night. So that is something to consider, but it's not unheard of. You can absolutely charge what you feel is best for your budget and
Right.
your
Uh-huh.
show and what you have. And no one like will never tell you that that is a bad idea.
Right.
Let me pull this link up here because I do think it's going to be super helpful. And there's also like some sample budgets. That way you can kind of look at, there's a couple solo show budgets in there that you can kind of pull some ideas from. We always share several of the successful artist budgets just without their names and without the venue names. That way people can kind of see how to go about it. Okay, find it here. How do I pay for my friend show? What a great title for a blog. Okay. Okay, dropping that in the chat right now. But that's going to be a great article. And then actually, ooh, that brings me to a point that I did not bring up that I wanted to. So thank you. Brilliant. If you've missed our workshops and panels, I really can't recommend them enough. Like the town halls are just myself and my co-director spewing information at you like today, which is helpful, I know, but it's also not like those hard facts that are going to get you like the secrets and the tricks from the people who have done it for years. Our workshops are going to be our veteran producers, people who have gone through this, people who have had success, also people who have made mistakes who want to share those mistakes so that you don't make the same ones. And those panels are so valuable in kind of learning the tricks. And you will find that. So I'm gonna share my screen again.
I just, sorry to interrupt. I just want to thank you. I have to go because I have some projects, but I
Oh,
want to thank you so much for your time. It was extremely helpful and I look forward to meeting you.
yes, you as well. Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you, Liz. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
You too. All right, I'm gonna share my screen real quick. Okay, you can see my screen again, I think. So if you pop down to the bottom, you'll see a lot of buttons with all of the different programs and things like that. One that I find the most helpful, or the one I send the link the most of, when a participant needs, support with something, I send this link probably 10 times a day. Workshops and town halls. So this link at the bottom of the website, if I click the right thing, will go directly to our YouTube page where I've created a playlist of all of this year's panels and workshops. So right from this link, you can find the budgeting panel, the marketing panel, the accessibility panel, all of the informational sessions from this year alone. And then every time, like once this is over tonight, I'm going to pop this into this playlist. And then if you want to get really crazy, go to just our YouTube page at Hollywood Fringe, and you can view 14 years of panels. I mean, I think Ellen said it during one of the last town halls, but it's true. But you can like find the haircut that did not serve me best over 14 years. Like you can see us grow up. But more importantly, you can get information from 14 years of past Fringe participants that will tell you about their marketing tricks, their, what they charged for tickets and why. Because even like account for inflation, of course, but a lot of the participants will tell you what they charged, but why they charged. So you can kind of use that information and to put it into 2024 numbers to hopefully help you out a lot.
I have two questions, kind of unrelated. The first one is, if you're still in the process of finding a venue, should you buy the insurance before you find the venue, or can you only buy it after?
Like insurance for the show?
Yeah.
Great question. Definitely wait, because the majority of our venues, I think all but two, will have a cheaper option for you to sign up to their rider.
Okay, great. Great.
Yeah.
And then second question, this is about like the play itself. If you're like making food as a part of your play, are you allowed to serve it to the audience, or is that not, is
Yeah,
that
no,
a trick question?
that's a great question. And it's actually been a while since this is like, that was a pre-COVID thing. And now it's like, oh, we can do that again, I guess. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think you absolutely can.
Okay.
I think you're going to want to be very careful with allergies, like of course, specifically, of course, when serving it, but even just having it in the space, like, peanut allergies, things like that, just making sure like any airbornes you don't want to hurt your audience, because again, they
Yeah.
won't come. And it's just not a nice thing to do. But just check with your venue, make sure that like you're following any rules that they have in place for food and drink in their space. And then make sure it's noted in the project page, and then you should be good.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. While we're at it, I'm gonna show one more thing, because more things keep popping in. Like these questions are great, y'all, because it reminds me of like, oh, I should show this. Because the website really is just quite large and it's easy to forget to show things. Okay, so what we're gonna do ever so quickly, and if you do have to go, please, y'all feel free. I won't take it personally whatsoever. But the nice thing is it'll still be on this recording for later. Okay, so we're gonna go back to our project page. Manage project page. Okay, go into the details. When you do book a venue, so like right now, below media, there's this fun little box that tells me, hey, you've registered for Hollywood Fringe, but you have not booked a venue. So this is going to be where your alerts live, which I know are very helpful because, I should book a venue if this is a real project, right? Also, if you have already booked a venue and they have sent over your performances, because it works like a deal. What the venue does is you have a contract with your venue and you've already had a conversation, so you know your dates. But on the website, they're going to send over the dates and the times in like a deal format. And that way you have a way to check it and go, yep, that's correct, and accept the deal. So that way it's kind of a checks and balances on the site. The venue adds them, you say, yep, and that will take place in a box right here. So once a venue has sent a deal over to me, there's going to be approved deal in this open box right here. So keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, you can always go back and change your registration information. So this is, we can go back to the basics. You can change this in your project page, so don't worry so much about that. But like if you wanted to change your tags, the things that are like, you know, searchable and that come up on your profile page, this is where you would change them. I always laugh. There was one year where I think we had like 14 apocalypse shows, and it was the most popular tag of all things. I don't know. But now whenever I do this little session, I make sure apocalypse is there. Venue, this is where if you want to come back and apply venues, you can do that here as well. But again, we showed you where to do it on the main page. This is also where your contract lives. So if you ever want to go back and go like, oh shoot, like I don't remember what was in your contract. Once you've signed it, it still exists here, which is a producer in general, right? It's always good to know where your contract is to refer back if needed. But specifically, I think tags are why you would come back to the space, or details. Specifically, these are the demographics, but if you had new information for your venue, maybe your cast went from a size 4 to a size 15 and you're still applying to venues, you're going to want to change that here to give your venues that heads up. Or another important thing, if you are still applying to venues, really do put this information in, because our venues are very good about not wanting to mismatch. Like for example, like if I put this here so I would actually remember to talk about it. So what are your tech requirements? You don't have to know the full like tech writer. You don't need to know everything. But if you know, like, hey, I'm going to use a Lyra hoop, which means I need to be able to be in a performance space that can rig safely. I'm going to want that in here, because the venue, not all venues can do that. And a venue, you know, if I'm the Broadwater and I know like, and I don't know this to be fact, but like I can't do that in the black box. I do not have the structure to have a Lyra hoop up in there. The Broadwater is going to let you know, like, hey, pal, I'm so sorry. Like this just, there's no way I can do that safely. But you know what? Thymele has a great rig point. So the venues are really good about kind of recommending if they see like a show is just not going to work in their space. And don't quote me on that. I don't know if Thymele is riggable, but like, for example, these bits are really information that the venue is going to use. And again, you can always go back to this section right here to update that. Okay. Anything else? Last call, y'all. And then we can wrap this up and everyone have a nice little early night. Awesome. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Remember, support at hollywoodfringe.org is your new best fringe pal. We are there to support you. All right, we'll see you soon, guys.
Thank you so much. Bye.